Hey, it's your boy VG Time back again. This time we are going to be looking at the Surge leaders. Set 7 through 9 was the multicolor era Dragon Ball Super. It was a very fun era. Each color had a very unique thing that it did, and most of them had at least one deck that kind of represented themselves. But not to leave anything good and well enough alone, Bandai decided, no, we're going to make multicolor leaders too. We got the battle cards, we got the extra cards, might as well do leaders. And that's where today's video came in. So right now we have our Surge leaders here. As you can see, Broly was printed 3 times, Kefla twice. That's because Broly was mid and Kefla was trash. So we didn't really look at these leaders, and that's why you could make them all the time. Invoker, very powerful, but you had to have a lot of money to play it. And then we have the guys who we'll be talking about today. Son Goku, Piccolo, and Cell. I've played all 3 of these decks, so I'm actually fairly educated on how they all work. Let's go with Surge Piccolo. During this time, Surge Piccolo was pretty much the best deck in the game. The reason being is because of its pre-errata'd text. It had an auto once per turn that at the beginning of your turn, look at the top card of your deck, place the card on the top or the bottom of your deck, then draw 1 card. This ability was insane. I remember when they were showing these leaders and they coming out with this expansion, everybody kept screaming to me, Surge Goku, Surge Goku, Surge Goku. And I would look at them and go, no, this guy is way better. And they would go to me, oh man, but you draw 2, you pitch 1 instead of graveyards. I don't care what they do. This guy's better. And then later on, I was proven right. So to all y'all who try to tell me otherwise, you know I was on it from the jump. Had the deck built like the day it came out. So anyway, this ability happened again at the beginning of your turn. So it's before you even drew for turn. You got to fix your draw and you drew a card off of it, as well as drew a card for turn. This ability was completely nuts. 2 cards a turn for never having to interact with your opponent, period. Was crazy. Then the Awakening Surge is what made him a Surge leader versus a regular leader, which is that you had to choose 1 card of each color, put it underneath it, and then you had different Awakening effects. This one is that you got to draw 3 and choose 1 card for your hand and switch it to active mode. So a lot of people see that, draw 3, switch 1, but it's a card advantage wise is effectively untap 1, draw 1. On the back side, you have activate main / battle once per turn. If your life is 3 or less and you choose 1 card under this card and place it on its drop area, you get to choose 1. Your opponent warps 2 cards from their hand, or you get to ramp a blue-green multicolor card from the drop area, negating its energy exhaust. Both of these abilities were super relevant depending on what your matchup was and how you were building the deck. And remember, this is activate main / battle once per turn. So you could Surge Awaken on your opponent's turn if you really wanted to. Activate this skill, rip 2 cards out your hand on defense. Then come back to your turn and rip 2 more cards out your hand. Or you could Awaken Surge, get energy, activate this, get a second energy, and then have the ability to interact with their turn. It was absolutely crazy. So to show you an example of what kind of deck list they were running back in those days, we're going to look at, I believe, Jonathan Rodriguez's list. So here's Jonathan's list, and he took this list to win the PBG Invitational. And it's a pretty straightforward blue-green build of Surge Piccolo. Now, in that expansion they came out with this card, which was completely insane, hidden potential. Denial Hope was a very format-defining card for green, and they just made it better by having it be able to untap a blue or green energy after you use it, which meant that it was basically 1 energy net to do the same exact ability. I believe Rejection was not around at the time, so you use Android 16 to get your ramp, which was perfectly fine. It kind of limited what you could play for boss monsters. That's why you don't see certain things like OG to 7 and stuff like that in here. But the ramp was still important. They went with more hand control. There's a Masu package, which I actually thought about bringing this package back. with Rose Goku Black into this guy right here to rip 2 cards from her hand. And then Vegeta the Cruel, another format defining card. Assimilated ability, which was your way of drawing once you got to the backside, because none of the Surge leaders drew once you got to the back in exchange for having 2 activations of some of the most busted abilities in the game. And then here's another banned card, Violent Predator. This was one of the few decks that could play it reliably. You would play Violent Predator, and against certain matchups, you would, like for instance Hatchiat, you would just play this and auto win the game because it will blow up everything on their board. And then, yeah, that's about it. And Futadar Banisher because it was gas, and I think we were at 1 copy of Unyielding at the time, so Jonathan chose to play it. But all in all, very powerful deck that was made to basically interact with everything your opponent played without having to actually interact with them by means of combat. Then you would rip their hand to 0, and you would just win the game from there with little pot shots. So here we are back at the Surge Leaders. What did they do to this card to help level out its power? Well, of course, people were screaming for bannings, but what they instead did was Errata'd this card to a point where I think is actually far too far and is unplayable. So now this says, at the beginning of your turn, look at up to 1 card from the top of your deck, place it on the top or the bottom of your deck, period. You don't get to draw a card. Now, you do draw a card for turn, so it fixes the card that you draw for turn, but that means neither on the front nor the back do you get to draw a card with this leader, which then made the leader unplayable. I think there's a way to play it now. I was actually debating on building something fun for locals, but literally you have to jump through a lot of hoops in order to get some card advantage off this guy now, which makes him very hard to play. Now, next we have that boy's Surge Goku. We already know I have been playing this leader recently. The reason for it was that this leader got to play the best red cards and the best yellow red cards, best yellow cards in the game. This was the same for the case when it was around at the time. To give you an example of a deck list, we have, where is that? Joey Palladino's list right here. And as you can see, we had Heartfelt Pleas on deck. Everything was out here, bro. Everything was out here. Raiders War Cry, all the good red stuff, all the good topo, all the good red stuff, all the good yellow stuff. What he mentioned in his deck profile, which is the reason why this deck was so great, was its activate main / battle being on either player's turn, which worked at 5 or less life, which was a huge difference between that and Surge Piccolo. So when you use this effect, you got to either choose all your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, and negate their skills for the duration of the turn, or this card gets plus 10k power and critical for the duration of the turn. That was the ability that people used. They used this plus 10k and crit, like double Senzu Bean, and you were basically invincible on your opponent's turn. It was crazy. You will be at 25, your opponent will have to discard all the cards to get at you, and it was basically time walking them back to you. After that, they have it like it is now, where it's only during your turn that you get to activate it. But I still think this leader is super overlooked and is very powerful and something that you might want to look into. Next leader is just outright banned. And this guy is my poster child for why green can't have good cards. Or green can't have good leaders. Because green has good cards, we just have sus leaders. Him, Reboot Gohan, which we'll have a whole nother video for. Prime example of why we can't have good leaders in green. Because I'm tired of the lip service. This little side piece. I'm tired of the lip service. Everybody always screams, oh, green needs good leaders, green needs good cards, this, that, and the other. Then as soon as they get one, and it does what it's supposed to do, everybody scream, please ban it, it's too good. Cell was that guy. So Cell, when it first came out, was by far the weakest of all the Surge leaders. It was way worse than Surge Goku and Surge Piccolo. But a card got printed which solved the one issue it had, and that just made the deck stock rise all the way to the sky. So let's look at a deck list for this. Now, I was going to show you guys my deck list, but I'm not that arrogant. I'm just going to go to Jordan Marco's third place deck list. And here you go. This is from US Nats. Not this past one, but the year before. He played this into a field full of Cell Surge hate. Deborah's main deck in people's decks and stuff like that, because this was the boogeyman of the room. If you played blue, you auto lost. If you played yellow, you auto lost. If you played, black, you had a good chance, but black got hit very heavy right before this. And if you played green, you probably still lost. Like if you play, it was crazy. This leader was so good. But it was because of this card, Sell the Dark Parasite. Well, the leader basically allows you to top 5 search, grab any card from the top 5, pitch a card from your hand. Then you got to Awaken Surge like the other, but you drew 2 on top 2. And on the backside, if you were at 4 or less life, you got to be able to basically time walk their battle cards, or you got to pop a guy and make them discard a card from their hand. If you're wondering what I mean by time walk, that means you basically ended your opponent's turn. That was a card in Magic the Gathering where it just said take an extra turn. You would basically do that to your opponent because it would make all your opponent's battle cards interplay that turn in rest mode. But this card gave you a great target to pitch the drop, because for free, you got to send it to the warp, to draw a card and add up to 1 card from your life to your hand. And that happened as early as turn 1, and he kept going forward. Saiyan Instincts was another great card. And at the time this card was printed, this Ribrianne was not around. So Ribrianne came around. It was really, really strong. And hand control in general just got more weapons. They got the Deborah with D-Bro ball package that they didn't have before. And just all around just had great cards added to green. And this deck was by far the best example of hand control that existed at the time, which is very different from hand destruction. And when this deck was out here doing this thing and it was doing so well and there was hate in the room and everything and it still got third place, well, this guy got banned. Thank you, Jordan. No, I mean it. Thank you, Jordan. So anyway, back to the thing at hand. Because these leaders existed, before these leaders came around, cards will reference a leader color, but did not require the leader to be mono that color. So it'd be like if you have a yellow leader, if you have a red leader, if you have a green leader. These cards came out, and from that point forward, cards mostly specified monocolor. And the purpose of that was because these leaders existed, and they did not want these leaders to become any better than what they already were. And they obviously made a mistake because Cell's banned. So that is it for this video. I'll catch you around next time, and it's VG Time signing out.